Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Catherine Mattice, founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We are a consulting firm focused on building positive, thriving work environments. So let us know where you're calling in or watching, not calling, tuning in from. I already see Canada and Romania. So love it. Love that we have people from all over watching. I'd love for you all to post where you're calling. I've got Ana. Dang it, you just told me how to say your last name and I lost it. Velica.
Velica.
All right.
Velica. Very well, Catherine. Well done.
So Ana is an inspirational leader with almost 2 decades of experience in the DEI space. And she says she's Romanian, but has been living in UK. I love that. And you've got a beautiful international background on inclusive leadership in the procurement and supply chain space, which I would imagine is a lot of men. Is that right?
Yes, very right, Catherine. Hence my passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hence my passion to start up my own business, which I want to position as a leader in career mentoring for underrepresented professionals. Yes.
That is so awesome. So the name of the company is Green Apples Career. So tell us a little bit about what Green Apples does. And by the way, we've got Brighton, Ohio, Nigeria, Amsterdam, another Nigeria. I love it. Thanks all. And feel free to ask questions as we're talking. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so Green Apples Career was born this year. Was born from hard times and is a career mentoring hub for underrepresented professionals. We believe that the real change starts from within, and we believe in those companies that really want to drive authentic changes in terms of retaining, attracting, and hiring more diverse, more equitable, and inclusive talent. And having gone through hard times, which I can, talk a bit more, gave me the lived experience of what's missing in big organizations, and also gave me the drive to really support those whose voices are not being heard or not being spoken up.
Okay. So you're a huge DEI advocate. Have you always been that way just because of the world that you were in that wasn't super diverse? Or how did your interest in DEI and giving underrepresented groups a chance evolve?
I think it's something I was born with, Catherine, to be very honest, because I remember from my student years when I was giving English lessons to young students with learning disabilities. All the way very recent, I was also recruited, headhunted by a professor at the University of Sussex here in the UK. And I remember Professor Constantine came and approached me, Anna, hey, you have an amazing career as a woman with an ethnic background. You climbed the career ladder. So you are a true example and inspiration to our master students. Would you like to join us? So this was, I think I attracted what I really believed in. And all the way long to this year, when I decided to leave the corporate world and literally listen to my heart and to my passion and to my fire in my belly.
I love that. That's where great careers and businesses are born from, right? Mine too. Yeah.
Yes.
So, how difficult has it been to transition from all that time in corporate to entrepreneurship and doing what you're doing now?
Probably the audience, my friends, people who know me and who attend this, and your audience as well, would think it's very hard for someone who has always worked in corporate world for 2 decades. It's going to be very hard. Yeah. I'm not gonna say, wow, it's simple. It's not. But I think for me, it was a natural pivot, a natural transition, because I had the know-how. Big
Mm-hmm.
corporations are beautiful schools that teach you great stuff and teach you not that great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also it flew naturally for me this year to really believe in myself and really believe in my passion, in my, in that fire.
Mm-hmm.
So it was difficult as a Romanian who's been living in the UK for 8 years to start up their own business. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that was difficult. But I remember I was one click away. I was Googling how to be an entrepreneur in London. So
Okay.
this is how I started. And it's beautiful. London offers amazing opportunities to entrepreneurs like myself. And for anyone who is interested to learn, there is one entity. It's called London Business Hub, and they offer business consulting free of charge, Catherine, free of charge,
Yeah.
just because they want us to succeed in a society, to be diverse, successful entrepreneurs. So this is how I started, from one click to where I have my Green Apples career as a trademark registered. And yes, a small team. We're a small team. We've just started up.
Yeah, I know you did. And I'm with you. Sometimes it's just that first step. We're a little off topic talking about entrepreneurship, but I was laid off from a company and I came home and basically bought a web domain and made a website that just to see what it
Yes.
would look like if I had this business I had in my mind. And probably most people would not say to start off with a website, but that's where I started. And it was kind of crafting my business plan and what I needed to get to as I was doing that. So I definitely hear you. So I'm curious. I'm white, middle class in America, so I'm that kind of plain Jane version, white privilege, all of that. So I would love to hear from you, if you don't mind. What is it like to look for a job if you're underrepresented? Tell me a little bit about that type of a journey that an underrepresented person is going on, or what types of things they're facing when they're looking for a job.
Catherine, I have my own privileges as well.
Yeah.
So I'm white, so this is a privilege. But I also have my protected characteristics as listed by the Equality Act 2010.
Yeah.
I'm a woman with an ethnic background. These are my protected characteristics.
Uh-huh.
However, when I apply for international jobs, actually my protected characteristics are just sometimes, unfortunately, just ticking the box
Mm-hmm.
for some organization in order to, meet their diversity KPIs. And
Mm-hmm.
you feel it. For someone very intuitive like myself, you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it in the hiring process. You feel it when you are being provided with selection, with recruitment feedback. You feel it and this is even worse, you feel it throughout your career. The more you try to climb the ladder,
Mm-hmm.
the more obstacles you face.
Right.
And you said it very well at the beginning. I have a successful international career in male-dominated jobs.
Yep.
Supply chain, there is a huge progress. However, it's still male-dominated environment. And being a woman, surrounded by British male colleagues, it was not easy to speak up, to be included in the decision-making process,
Mm-hmm.
and actually to drive changes. So it's not easy. So I know I've lived that experience. However, I think for me, I have this gift of coming from an ex-communist country I'm very, very brave, very courageous. I think the more obstacles I have, the better I am as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And this helped me, the courage, that force. But not my teams, for example, very diverse teams, where didn't have that courage,
Right.
and I had to stand up for them.
Right. And I feel like you're a little bit in the same space in that, when I'm talking about workplace bullying, a lot of we are doing trainings. A lot of what I'm doing is giving the workforce tips on how to manage bullying or inappropriate behavior or microaggressions kind of on their own, because that's super important, right? Yes, the leaders have to make changes, and I focus on that too, very much so. But also, everyone in the workforce needs tips for themselves as an individual. I feel like you're in the same boat, giving tips, through your mentoring for, if I'm underrepresented, and I really see that in my interviewing process and the my networking and all of that, that if you give me advice, I might say, well, the organization has to change if they're going to let me in or hire me or treat me like I'm included. I'm just curious, what is some of the types of advice you give to someone who's saying something like that? That, well, I don't, this is my challenge and the organization has to change in order for it to change. What do you say to someone?
First of all, I want to make to say something here publicly, that how we met. Yeah, how we met.
Yeah.
I thanks to your LinkedIn learning course about bullying in workplace, I was like, wow, I like Catherine. She preaches my experience, my lived experience.
Uh-huh.
You don't preach just the book, it's a lived, it's something I had to overcome in my many years of international career. So I recognized just by going through your training, I recognized toxic behaviors. I recognized bullying behaviors. I recognized passive discrimination. And I realized everything you were talking about: look after yourself, stand up, find courage, reach out to people, to your, to friends. I realized I've done it all. And I was in that moment, I remember I dropped your message, and it's how we started to, to connect with each other, to support each other. So a big thank you for that, because
well, thank you.
it's a valuable training. So what are my, your question was, what are my advices?
Yeah, what's one of the tips that you give people who, well, I'll preface this question by saying, thank you, first of all. And yeah, that course that you're talking about is that same thing. Like, as an individual contributor, you may be not able to change the entire culture of your organization or get somebody fired because they treat everybody else awfully. But you yourself can take steps as an individual to protect yourself and the people around you. And it's really about, don't see yourself as a victim of circumstance. You have to decide to take this challenge on and proactively, interact with that challenge. And I think, so you're probably in the same boat, right? If you have
Yeah.
a person of color who's telling you, I can't change anything. The culture has to change, or society
No,
has to change. So
no.
there's that element of, I'm assuming, sometimes helplessness versus the decision to keep moving forward and keep applying and all of that. So that was my question. What's a tip you might give me if I was a person of color, for example, coming to you for career coaching, and I'm telling you it's hopeless. All of the companies out there are not focused on me unless they have a affirmative action rule. What kind of advice do you give?
Yes, Catherine, and actually, this is our, my personal ethos and Green Apple's career ethos. We believe the change comes from within. It's very easy, as you said, to blame the culture. It's very easy to blame the toxic manager who bullies you. It's really easy to blame the others. But we believe in transformative changes that come from looking into the mirror, being honest with ourselves, and loving, giving us a big hug and saying, we do not table those discussions. We need to speak up. If I don't know how to formulate, how to state something which is discriminatory, I reach out to my mentor, to my coach, to a specialized support in order to educate myself. Second, as part of Green Apple's career ethos, is raise your voice. Once you got yourself educated, raise your voice. This is what I've done it. And this is why I was so successful. My male managers, good and bad, in 20 years careers, as you can imagine, they told me, all of them, they told me, Anna, you are so brave. We've never seen someone as brave as you. Of course, because I had to stand up for myself, because I believed in myself, Catherine. And I said, I know how good I am. So raise your voice once you get your education. Raise your voice in workplace. I encourage my mentees to keep a record, to report it formally. But also, I tell them, choose your battles, because it's always them against an organization, and it's not healthy. Yeah. So we cannot change an organization, but we can change our paths and our, careers and lives, as we both did. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the truth. We can change the path by changing how we react to what's happening around us, because all sorts of things happen that are out of our control. And you always have a choice to blame other people or figure out how you can effectively make some changes. I have one question, and I'm wondering, pardon me if I say it wrong, Poobadoo. Your question is, I would like to ask something about how to deal with natism in the workplace. I'm wondering if you're talking about narcissism, but I don't want to assume. So if you would clarify for us, we can definitely get you an answer. What's one piece of advice you can give employers out there about lifting up the underrepresented groups in their organizations?
I would give many advices, not only one. Lately we've seen this wave of the big resignation with George's movement that started in the USA. We've seen more jobs in diversity, equity, and inclusion than ever. But actually, it has not started yesterday or 2 years ago, or just because the pandemic. The discrimination has always been there in certain societies, in certain circumstances, even back in my country. Discrimination against women, or discrimination against pregnant women. Yeah. So there are all sorts of discrimination. What I would give one piece of advice, I believe in the power of mentoring. If I look back, Catherine, in 20 years of working in corporations have money. They invest in mentoring programs. I was one of the privileged one. However, I realized why, given all the mentors, the great people I worked with and supported, I still faced discrimination in many ways and forms. Yeah, why? And I realized mentoring within a company is biased somehow. Yes. So I believe in mentoring outside of the organization in order to truly benefit from a non-biased mentoring program. I truly believe in that. All my mentees, they tell me, Anna, it's the best the best thing I've ever done to reach out to you. So this is something like a very fresh testimony of how important mentoring is outside of the company, because the company provides with mentors which are biased or who are
Right.
biased. Yeah. So
Right.
this is one piece of advice, and I strongly believe that mentoring happens before hiring. Before you hire someone, and this is what this is my vision with Green Apple's career, to partner early on and to have amazing partnerships, to provide mentoring to talented professionals right before they get hired or they get promoted. I believe mentoring is very late, is provided by company very later, you know, in the stage. So this is what I believe in, the power of non-biased mentoring. I believe diversity, equity, and inclusion should sit outside of HR. HR and diversity and inclusion department should create that healthy challenge. Diversity, equity, and inclusion should challenge the organization, the HR, the board on inclusive
Yeah.
recruitment policies, on non-discriminatory performance management practices, on better and more transparent pipeline of talent. So, and this is not happening. Everything I see is like HR, diversity and inclusion vacancy as part of the HR. This is
Right.
wrong.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it before. I, obviously see DEI positions under HR a lot, but that's a fair point that if you have a CHRO, you probably need a CDEIO. Is
Yes.
that because that person's role is to be kind of an outlier in order to push the organization to think differently and all of that, and needs to be right there with the CEO at that C-suite table versus reporting up to HR, who may or may not totally get it. And yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't thought about that before, but that makes perfect sense. I like that. That's a good takeaway for me. A little mind blown action. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So leave us with some final thoughts about what we need to do from here. What's a good action step for everyone on the call, no matter who we are or where we are? What do we need to do?
I like what Maya Angelou said. It is time for parents to teach young people early on that in diversity, there is beauty and there is strength.
Yeah.
I love it. And what I would really like the audience to take away is the courage piece. As long as we expect the change to happen to us, nothing will change nothing great will change. But as long as we initiate the change within ourselves, we can create change. It sounds like I'm, a big advocate, but I truly believe in the courage piece. Courage to speak up, courage to support when we see and witness people being bullied. Let's stand up and let's be allies. And I truly believe in change with reformative schools. I think if you can say it, reformative. And this is where we have partnerships, because we believe that in the power of personal and professional development with those underprivileged people, young people who chose unlawful practices. So this is something where I'm actively partnering with motivational coaches. And I believe in the power of lived experience, Catherine. I don't believe in preaching the book. I believe in lived experience that create long-lasting impact.
Yeah, I love that. It is about that. And we actually have two questions just came through. So I have 4 minutes and then I have another call. I did want to mention before I'll maybe pick one, but I just saw a woman speak yesterday. I'm here in San Diego, she's an engineer. She's a woman engineer. She's a person of color. And, she was saying as she was presenting on this nonprofit she'd started that, she looked around and nobody looked like her. There in engineering, there's no women and certainly not a whole lot of people of color. And so she got buy-in from her organization who she was doing an employee resource group or affinity group inside the organization. And then she had this brilliant idea that we need to be outside of the organization coaching women and little girls, and particularly little girls of color, about engineering. And she ended up she kind of started doing it as a volunteer on her own, and then she ended up saying, look, company I work for, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I can monetize this, which maybe is the wrong word because I'm talking about a nonprofit, but I'm not going to do this under your payroll. I'm going to do it on my own. But they ended up investing in her nonprofit that she started while she was working there. She still works there, but she leans on the employees. But I thought that was a really great example of an employer saying, we trust you. We agree we need more women and more people of color in the engineering space. And you seem to have figured out a way to start making that happen at a young age. And so, I don't know, just lots of things were coming together for me. She's mentoring these little girls. And just a side note, I thought it was interesting. She said, so that she goes to schools and helps them build robots and things. And then she said, these little girls who are people of color, they go to an engineering competition of the same grade, and there's a lot of little white boys running around. And also those little white boys are competing for points. Girls don't want to compete for points. Women are different than men. So now she's, instead of competing for points and going to those things, she brings different like elementary schools together, and the girls collaborate and figure out a social problem they want to solve. And then they build a robot related to the social problem, like picking up trash on the street. Let's build a robot that roams the streets of San Diego and picks up trash. And so then they're collaborating on a robot versus my robot can punch your robot. It was just kind of funny how little boys and little girls are going to be thinking about it
differently. But this is fantastic example, and this reminds me of my early on this year. I volunteered my career mentoring advice to citizen schools in the United States. So
awesome.
Probably. Yeah, and it's amazing to see the young students actually looking at, wow, London is here on the map. Wow, a supply chain. What is supply chain? What is so? It's fantastic to have that entrepreneurship and to be an example, especially to young students.
Yeah. And that's what she was teaching them too. She's teaching them about leadership. And like you said, mentoring often happens late. So we're saying those little girls would have to go to engineering school, be an engineer, and then they'd get mentored, versus seeing someone who looks like them at 8, that's going to have a very different impact. It is 10:30. I'm sorry I talked and didn't get to your questions. Ana, she'll be on that. I'm going to speak for you on our LinkedIn event page where this video will sit for forever and ever. Ana can answer your 2 questions in the chat there. So apologies we didn't get to them. But this was a super amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. And it's a delight to be part of your corner show. And it's a delight to connect virtually. And I hope one day we will be able to have a talk in person somewhere.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Los Angeles.